are we ready to go? Should we do this?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for making it here at 9 a.m. I can't say I was sure I was going to make it, but I did, and we did, and you did. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Cool. Well, Calil, you want to kick off with a quick intro of what we're up to here, and then we can go on ahead.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do a little introductions, but generally we're all designers in Ethereum. We're here to talk about design, big topic, and also some of the things that we work on. And yeah, I'm Calil. I work at Uniswap. I lead design there. Worked on Uniswap for a long time, since the beginning.
What year? Just so people know.
True. Yeah, good question. Well, at the earliest stuff was at the end of 2017, and then Uniswap was 2018 into 2019. So, you know, those were the good days, really early days.
You were there at the genesis.
Yes. You know, not quite that far back, but yeah.
Yang, you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Yang. I started working in the space in 2019, so a little bit after you. My first job was at Anchorage as the first in-house designer, so it was a really exciting time there, seeing them grow from just secure core custody, which on the surface looks like viewing your assets and sending and withdrawing, all the way to the expanding it to institutional crypto across the entire stack. So like governance, staking, yeah, trading, lending, everything. From there, I had moved on to Syndicate to work on investing infrastructure for Web3. And at the same time, also joined Vector DAO, which is how I met Yitong. And that's just a phenomenal group of designers that is a really fun time. We get to work with some early stage founders. And last year, I joined Paradigm, leading design for the firm itself, building some things internally, as well as supporting our portfolio founders from a variety of stages.
I just want to call out these two are being very humble. They're both heads of design at their respective firms, but they don't want to flex it, so I will flex for them. I am merely a lowly nobody compared to these two. No. No, same-ish, roughly timeline of history. I started working in sort of crypto stuff around early 2018. That's when I joined Coinbase. One of the early designers there, worked on everything on the Blue app. I say this because the wallet app was green back then. So everything that probably was 2018 to 2021, I had something to do with it. Left, started this thing called Vector DAO, which is a collective of designers and engineers working in crypto. And now I work on Agora, improving public governance infrastructure. So that's the intro. All right. So should we kick it off with some lightning round questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I know the name of this talk has changed a little bit, but once upon a time, I believe that it was called One Weird Trick for Designing in Ethereum. So could we have the two guests go and say their one weird trick for designing in Ethereum? I'll give you like 5 seconds to think about it. But as heads of design, I'm sure you've got that loaded up already.
That's a great question. Do you have something on top of your mind, Yang?
This is prefacing a thing we may talk about later, but I would say thinking outside of what you're building.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's nice. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, we will talk about it later. My one weird trick to designing in Ethereum, basically always make it more simple. That's the one weird trick. Yeah.
Okay. I give you guys good scores for good tricks, but I'm not sure they were weird enough. But we'll keep going. I got a couple of more non-serious questions, and then we can get to the meaty stuff. So, Calil, I went and crept your entire history before this talk, and I know you're very into gardening. So, curious how your interest in gardening shapes your practice as a designer.
That's really nice. I have thought about this before, actually, a lot. And I think what gardening teaches me, which I think anybody who's grown things kind of feels this, is patience, obviously, but also a feeling of like shepherding or stewarding a life outside of yourself. And often I do think of design work, design systems, patterns, products as having lives of their own, and that I am sort of somewhat separate from them, but I'm guiding them along. And I think that sort of perspective of like being a guide is actually pretty important yeah, to design.
That's awesome. Okay, now a question for you, Yang. I know that this time last year you were at ETH Denver giving a talk about very much the same topic, designing for humans in Web3. I'm curious, has any of your thoughts changed in the last year since? Any revisions that you want to share with us?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say generally I structured those to be pretty universal and timeless. So a lot of things like, oh, we have a lot more noise in the space just because it's an open ecosystem, anyone's able to come in and build. All of us are wearing a ton of different hats, figuring out things like taxes, custodying our own assets for the first time. I would say no major changes other than I think we can think more critically about building towards a pluriverse and what that means to us moving forward.
Cool. Okay, last random question I have before we go into serious stuff. Are sporks good or bad UX? And if they're good, why don't we see them more often?
I'm gonna call them bad UX. People might disagree with me, but I do love a good multi-tool, but I think I love a tool that does one thing really, really well more.
A classic designer response.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a thing that's trying to do a lot. Like sometimes when we're building, we can fall into that trap. But again, yeah, you think of use cases where you're out camping and you think that would come in handy, but I don't see quite that many, yeah. So I will say not specific enough to the use case.
Okay. Yeah, we spork haters here. I understand. All right. Well, listen, enough about sporks. Let's talk about Ethereum. So why don't I just open up with something fairly general? Can you guys tell us sort of a little bit more about the ethos of designing Ethereum and how that's been different in sort of in comparison to designing for Web2 companies? You guys have obviously deep experience in both. We'd love to hear sort of you contrast the experience and highlight some of the unique aspects of working in our field.
Yeah, I think when I think about designing and just building and designing in Ethereum, one metaphor that I think towards is kind of feels like we're all working on school projects. So it's fun, it's social, you get to work with your friends. At the same time, you are focused on your section of the essay. You throw in a transition in the beginning and end, and you throw it into the Google Doc, hoping that it falls in line with what your teammates are writing and kind of what they're building. I think for our world, oftentimes most of us are working on just kind of one part of the stack, and we throw in a connect wallet button, and we kind of let the users kind of figure out the rest of the experience on their own. I think, yeah, it's really interesting. I think high level, what's so special about designing in Ethereum is this open ecosystem that we do have, and allowing kind of every part of the stack is ripe for innovation, right? Anything from creating new change to apps to wallets. And the amazingly great thing about that is it is open. Anyone can come and remix off of what exists today. And you would think that, in theory, that leads us to converging on exponentially better design over time, right? But I think in reality, and the flip side of it is we end up with these pretty disjointed user experiences. We're not as thinking end-to-end. We're using the same frameworks of company building and product building that we have in the past years in Web2 companies and elsewhere. And I think that leads us to some interesting outcomes that we've seen. So I guess case in point, in real life, we never have to think about the payment infrastructure, everything that goes on behind the scenes when we're buying a coffee. In the dApps that have been built today, there's such an emphasis on it's always connect wallet and never create wallet in the apps themselves. And that's the equivalent of if you're browsing the web and you only see sign in and not sign up. What does that mean for the first user coming in? So yeah, I think overall, it's kind of an intuitive take, but to think outside of what we each are immediately building and to think more end-to-end, and also outside of the kind of frameworks that we've always been having over time.
Cool.
Love it. Some of the things that I've learned, I think, about from this past few years of designing Ethereum have been a lot to do with kind of ego a little bit. I think designers, especially in school, there is a little bit of that practice that focuses on the individual and what you can produce, your identity as a designer, and building an Ethereum, especially in early days of like building the swap UI and having that be forked and kind of, you know, seeing thousands of different versions of that has really taught me to like kind of remove my ego a little bit from that, from design. And I think that's actually quite a good thing, to be open and like humble about what you can actually impact and what is happening in that broader story that Yang mentioned. Another thing that I think is different in Ethereum or just generally in our industry is that design does have a kind of an outsized impact actually on the success of some of these products. Something that we talk about internally is sort of this idea of the thesis of user-aligned interfaces. And it's something very important to us at Uniswap. What this means is that now, if you're building on an open stack on Ethereum on a public blockchain, really you're competing on the level of UX and design, right? Because the infrastructure, the data underneath it is very open, right? I can go take a seed phrase and I can move wallets. I can't do that on Venmo today, right? For instance. And what it really forces companies to innovate like up the level of the stack a little bit if they want to grow. And I think this is a unique position to be in and something that designers have to learn, right? That like the real kind of unlocks will be at that level if we are to like scale up.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me poke you guys a little bit about this. So, I mean, first of all, you brought up sort of this interesting ego thing where like you often hear this designers on the internet, you crib me, I can't believe it, I'm gonna call you out. You are probably the most cribbed designer anywhere. I'm sure many in the audience have cribbed your design and forked the Uniswap swap interface. How does that make you feel? Is that good? Is that bad? Are we sort of like Compound Aave look the same? Like many swap interfaces look the same? Like, is that standardization good? Is that standardization bad? How do you view this?
I actually see it as a good thing. I'm really excited when I see forks, and I'm even more excited when I see forks, like conceptual forks, not just raw forks of the interface. Like, I like even inspecting, within the panel on Chrome just to see, like, does it look the same in the div structure? Like, how deep has somebody gone into recreating that UI? And so I do like when that happens, and I do think it leads to incremental improvements. But at the same time, as Zhang was saying, it also means that they're copying all the mistakes that we made, which are many, right? Like, a UI that was developed by a team of 3 in 2018 has inherent within it like a ton of limitations, right? Because we didn't have the capacity to do whatever. And it means that you might be copying a set of constraints that you're not aware of. And that can really hold things back and prevent sometimes deeper thought that would lead to more progress.
I mean, Yang, I'm sure in your role as the head honcho of design at Paradigm, you get probably this question quite often. It's like, hey, like portfolio companies come to you, like, we know what we want. Like, look, they've done it before. It's like this. Like, do you often run into these situations? I mean, even the Vector, I feel like we often ran into people who are like, I just want this, but like, not pink. So how do you respond to that? Like, how do you work through that? Is that like a thing that you even see? I imagine it must be, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that is a common, I mean, even within ourselves as designers, I think one of the easy things to do is before I'm starting on a user flow or something, go reference our competitors or whatever is out there today and the existing patterns. I agree with Calil's point that I think you brought up, it's a kind of a local maximum that we're at right now, but I think we'll also see a lot of kind of big step changes in terms of infrastructure, ZK, things that are really much going on behind the scenes or not exposed to like front end right now, but I think will create like massive or exponential, better patterns that we may change. So I think it's important to keep that in mind and also, kind of remix with intention and think about what is very specific to founders or audience's specific use case or what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think there's sort of this very interesting, to me at least, history of wallet design in crypto, where like if you're there in the early days, like a lot of the wallets were genuinely really, really weird. And I think that's maybe what held Ethereum back for a very long time, where like I remember the early days of wallets, like they were like messenger apps, and people were like, WeChat was the right metaphor for this. So like Status was like a chat app. Toshi, which is what Coinbase Wallet was before it became Coinbase Wallet, was also a chat app. That was actually one of the first things I did at Coinbase, was to rip out the chat functionality. But to me, that was like a very interesting time in Ethereum, where we were like, look, we understand these primitives that we were operating on, but we have no idea how people are supposed to interact with them. And it seems to me now that we are much more in a convergent phase of user interface design, where if you look at some of the wallets that are out there, Coinbase, Rainbow, maybe something else, they all kind of look the same. Like, is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I know we've talked about it a little bit in the context of swap interfaces, but I'm curious on the wallet side. I mean, these are starting to become, if you squint a little bit, like just different colors of the same UI.
Do you have I could answer what I think. Yeah, I kind of agree that there is a convergence happening. And I think what's also interesting is that I've been thinking a lot about how like an organization learns about how to build something and what it means for like a larger team to gain expertise to then be able to innovate, right? And I think that in this world of Ethereum, a lot of times there is these moments of conversion that happen. Let's say around or convergence around like the swap interface, where each team kind of had to like get its internal understanding of the thing, so they work with patterns that we know users like and love. And then once you gain that internal like competency and that real deep understanding and start to talk to people, that's when you can sort of like take those big next steps forward. And so I do expect to see, in specifically the world of wallets, like a convergence and then like this exponential growth as people find their niches from what their users are telling them.
That's really great. Anything you want to add on that, Yang?
Not really. I think that, yeah, I very much agree with that. And I think it's been interesting to see that evolution of wallets has very much followed the rest of the space, where you start out with just, being able to see your balance, being able to send and withdraw. Then you see all these, ERC20s pop up, and then everyone's able to see, multiple assets in their wallet. And now it's doing a lot more in terms of kind of app side, yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, speaking of sort of the current meta of convergent design, is there anything like out there right now that you are not personally working on that's really catching your eye as something that's kind of special that is worth highlighting, and like in the spirit of calling out things that are interesting?
Yeah, I think for this year macro level, there's a few things. I think I'll just go through four items really quickly. I think the first is with this rise of just ChatGPT and AI, I think it'll greatly decrease the gap between kind of ideation and expression, especially amongst non-designers, so increasing that communication between us. The second, I think, is integrating with kind of Web 2 tech and especially Auth. I think that we may see kind of wallets or things that may use like Apple Passkey or biometrics that'll greatly increase the experience on both Web 2 and Web 3. Web 3 itself, I think, increasing in new tech like ZK, both cross-platform or cross-bridging, as well as like be able to really quickly and get on-chain data, will greatly make the UX of Web3 better as well. And then finally, I think given macro economy, it's a chance for our Web3 design community to get a lot closer as well and to challenge each other's thinking, to the points that we were making earlier.
That's awesome. And I know, Calil, you have some thoughts about 4337 and wallets in general. So
yes.
Give you the last minute to share a little bit more about that.
Great. So we touched on this topic a little already. I think I'm going to show something now to everybody that we've been working on at Uniswap. Pretty obviously, because of the topic, we've been working on a wallet.
Woo!
So big news. Here it is. This is something we've been working on for a really long time, and we're really excited to share. It also, as I mentioned, is this big team effort and big team learning that we've gone through to be able to get here. I think it represents like our ambition for being one circle outside of that little swap box. We really want to get larger. And we've been educating ourselves a lot about things like 4437, like all this account abstraction stuff. And you can expect to see those learnings come into practice over the next few months. So yeah, download it. This is the test flight link. Feel free to scan it and come to our booth to try it out. We do think we have a really fresh, cool vision for what wallets can be. And it will also feel familiar and feel like Uniswap. So yeah, come check it out.
Guys, I'm excited about this. As a person who worked on wallets for a very long time, I can tell you this is a good wallet. You should try it out. Thanks so much, guys. And
thank you.
Yang, anything to add to that?
Just to add on, I think hats off to the Uniswap team. It's a pretty big milestone just to see, a dApp move upstream, like you were saying. So yeah.
And shout out to the Uniswap team. Love you guys.
Woo!
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much, y'all.
Find us at the booth. Everybody's wearing these shirts. Come talk to us.